Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and those of you who want to be gentry. Welcome to Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. One could, if one wanted to, read this novel of 1813 as a manual to social climbing via marriage. Because believe me one thing, even before Tinder and online dating services, the concept of relationship optimization was known. It just went oh so much slower. Today's cast are Elizabeth Lizzie Bennet, almost pretty, almost a little too intelligent, but very humorous, and second daughter of Mr. Bennet, a sarcastic gentleman with a problem, namely 5 daughters and no son, which is why his little family estate Longbourn, as soon as he dies, goes to a distant cousin named Mr. Collins, hello, cause some idiot ancestor of his had determined that the property was only to be handed down in male line. This discriminating process is called entailment and drives Mrs. Bennet round the bend. Mind you, she's an hysteric cow anyway, to whom her husband seems to be married entirely for her entertainment value. Their eldest daughter is called Jane. She's beautiful, kindness personified, and almost on the naive side of nice to everybody, and thus just the type of Mr. Bingley. A handsome, well-off single man who is oh so marriageable and moves into the neighborhood, gets interested in Jane, and we'll see. His best friend is called Fitzwilliam Darcy. He's even more handsome, weller off and singler than Bingley, but he's proud. Oh gosh, is he arrogant, looks like. So that's enough figures. It is around 1800 and we find ourselves in Hertfordshire. That used to be a day's trip to the north of London. Nowadays it's basically a suburb. In Longbourn, Mrs. Bennet is going bananas because the neighbouring estate Netherfield has a new resident after years of vacancy. He's young, he's single, he's rich. You'll introduce yourself to him at once, Mr. Bennet. Otherwise we can't present him the collection of daughters we have and someone else might snatch him away. You know, I'll just write him a note. He has free choice, right? You jerk! He's always ironical, Mr. Bennet is, but he fulfills his duty and establishes contact with Bingley, who, at the next ball, is present with his sisters and his friend Darcy, and all are smitten with Bingley. First and foremost, the Bennet daughters, like Jane, for example. He's so nice and he looks so good and he's dancing, for at this stock market of marriageable youth, dancing equals demand, and Jane's price is skyrocketing because he's danced with her twice. Unfortunately, there's not enough gentlemen present, which is why Bingley turns to his friend. Darcy, you got to dance too. No, you got the only beauty and that sister over there is only second rate. Lizzie is meant and she hears it and is rather offended but doesn't say anything because Jane's so thrilled. Twice he danced with me and the sisters are oh so nice. Lizzie is not convinced that the sisters are oh so nice and afterwards tells her friend Charlotte, who's living close by, so they're in love with each other, but she doesn't show it very much. And Charlotte goes, oh, that's very dangerous. You know, men are so insensitive. It is always better to exaggerate a little. And at following social events, Darcy is always eyeing Lizzie and she goes, what's he goggling at? And when the next occasion to dance arises, he goes, may I have the next no way. A little later, Jane is invited to Netherfield, gets wet on the way and falls ill. She stays overnight, and Lizzie goes, I'll go there and look after her. And being the pragmatic girl she is, she ploughs through the muddy fields and steps into Netherfield just when people have sat down for breakfast and goes, sorry for my rustic appearance, I'm here to look after Jane, please keep seated, I'll find the way. And the Bingley sister goes, bosh, he's such a country bumpkin, where's your rubber boots? And the other sister goes, well, Jane is such a nice girl, but those relations of hers, one of them's supposed to be a lawyer. You cannot marry into something like that. Bingley protests, for he really likes Jane, but Darcy takes the same line, going, well, it's difficult, you know. This, however, doesn't prevent Darcy from seeking Lizzie's company in the evenings, for she stays a couple of days until Jane gets better. Then the sisters return to Longbourn a little later. Mr. Collins, to whom the estate is entailed, has arrived and goes, it's so nice to be here. I'm a vicar now, with a wonderful patron Lady de Bourgh, and the only thing I'm missing is a pious wife. And hey, you got a whole collection of beauties here, and if I took one of them, that might somehow redress the injustice of this unlucky entailment. Jane here, for example, she's reserved. Or Lizzie. Now, a regiment of militia is stationed in the town. One of the newcomers is the officer Wickham, a favourite with the ladies, especially the 2 youngest Bennet sisters, Lydia and Catherine. And when he meets Darcy in the street by chance, both go, ha! And he goes, ha! He is, however, very sympathetic, and Lizzie likes him a lot. And he goes, how long has this Darcy fellow been here for? You know him? Good enough. You know, I've grown up together with Darcy. My dad was his manager and my godfather, and he promised me a parsonage, and when he was dead, young Darcy refused to give it. This is so incredible unjust. This Darcy is such an ass. Then there's a ball at Netherfield, and Vicar Collins freaks out Lizzie so much that she accidentally, dances with Darcy and goes, you have to say something, this Wickham's in town. Tja, he's a quick one to find friends, but he loses friendships quickly too. And yours he has lost. That is so. And the Bingley sister then bitches around going, that Wickham's a lying jerk. And Lizzie's mother makes a fool of herself going, well, Bingley must propose to Jane any moment now, really. I'm so happy and she's so deserved it, so loud that everybody can hear it. Shut up, Mom, for heaven's sake. Then the middle sister Mary, who's not so pretty and not so musical, also embarrasses herself by singing and playing the piano on end, so all in all the Bennets don't leave a very favourable impression that evening. Just when it's over and Lizzie thinks that things cannot get much worse, Mr. Collins proposes to her the next day. I would like to flatter you by asking you to become my wife. And she goes, thanks, but no thanks. Ha, that's etiquette that you refuse, right? So that's a yes? No. Good, so if you agree, I'll talk to your father. I do not agree. You're already saying that. And how am I supposed to say it if I don't agree? No, nein, no, niet, ochi. Oh, okay. This infuriates her mother. Her father, however, thinks that she's proved intelligence by the decision. Jane gets the news. The Bingleys have gone to London all at once and won't return anytime soon. This sort of worries me. And Lizzie gets the news. Collins has at once proposed to Charlotte and she's accepted. Charlotte, are you mad? But the friend goes, marriage is marriage. Then Jane has to get accustomed to the fact that her marriage with Bingley probably won't happen, because this is what the Bingley sister tells her. And all go, he was so kidding you. Fortunately, their aunt and Uncle Gardiner invite Jane to London so she can try to distract herself. In spring, Lizzie goes to visit her friend Charlotte, now Mrs. Collins, in Rosings, Kent. There they hang around at Lady de Bourgh's manor all the time. I have sufficient good taste for everyone present. Please don't trouble yourselves with opinions of your own. Then again, please do, or I don't have anyone for bashing. And while they are thus being annoyed by the lady, her nephew arrives, none other but Darcy. And Lizzie goes, huh! But he starts to orbit Lizzie, and she learns then from a nice cousin of his, who is also there, that he's boasting he has saved a friend, that is Bingley, from a marriage below his station. This is so freaking me out! One day he meets her on her own, and he goes, okay, I'm sorry, I can't repress my feelings any longer. I love you. Will you marry me? And she goes, excuse me? And he goes, what? No, thank you. But that's impossible. Are you stark raving mad? You fucked up my sister's relationship, and you fucked up Wickham? And he's flabbergasted and writes her a long letter, which she hoovers in the next day. Let me put this straight. First, I watched your sis closely, and she didn't show any signs of being in love. Shit, that might have looked like this from the outside. And the way your mother and sister behaved at the Netherfield ball were a shame, and the reason I put down my foot to prevent this marriage. Not money, not other relations. Shit, we fucked up Jane's happiness ourselves. Regarding Wickham, he first wanted money and not to be a priest, which I gave him and he squandered. Then he went back and said he wanted the parsonage, and then I said no, and then he tried to seduce and elope with my sister. She's a teenager. So much for that, your Fitzwilliam Darcy. And she goes, this cannot be, this must all be a lie. Oh my God, I've done him so wrong in every respect. She feels terrible. Replying to the letter doesn't seem to be an option, and she's glad to be going home again. There, however, the atmosphere has considerably dropped, because the militia has been ordered away from home and her sister Lydia is desperate. Oh no, I'm gonna kill myself! What? The wife of an officer has invited me to accompany her to Brighton, where the regiment has gone. May I please go? And she's allowed to. Similarly, Lizzie gets invited to join her nice aunt and Uncle Gardiner to go up to Derbyshire with them for a holiday. And they go, right, today we're visiting Pemberley, the estate of Mr. Darcy. Gosh, but he's not going to be at home, right? No, of course not. So Elizabeth takes a good look at Pemberley and goes, what? Because this is quite an estate. If I had said yes, only imagine when Darcy crops up and she goes, you can't be here. And he goes, no, I can't be. What are you doing here? Can I introduce my sister to you? And the sister goes, hi, and she goes, hi. They like each other, and she gets a message. Wickham has eloped with Lydia, and maybe he doesn't even marry her. I need to go home at once. This catastrophe cripples the hopes of the remaining Bennet sisters to ever hook up with an acceptable husband in marriage, and this causes severe weeping and gnashing of teeth. Yet after a couple of days, Dad, who had been unsuccessfully trying to locate the couple in London, gets a letter saying, what? They're gonna get married? All is good? It must have been Uncle Gardiner who managed this with loads of cash. How am I ever gonna repay him? And although Daddy hates it, the newlyweds visit Longbourn. Wickham is smiling as ever. Lydia is as stupid as ever. Hey, it's great to be a married woman, and hey, Wicky's gonna be a real officer in the real army now. The wedding was wicked, and very nearly Darcy had to hand me over. Oops, I shouldn't have said that. And Lizzie goes, What? She's the only one to have heard this and learns upon inquiry from her aunt that it was Darcy who actually found the couple, paid Wickham's debts, and even got an army post for him, his old enemy, thereby settling the affair. Soon afterwards, Bingley and Darcy come to visit, and finally Bingley manages to propose to Jane, a long-awaited event. That I live to see the day. Then surprisingly, Darcy's aunt, Lady de Bourgh, comes to see Lizzie. What a dreadful place. Listen, lassie, you will take an holy oath now that you are never going to marry my nephew Darcy because he's for my daughter. I do not tolerate opposition. In that case, lady, you're gonna learn something new. Fuck you. Well, she doesn't use the exact wording, but the meaning is the same. Everybody pities Lizzie for having to put up with the arrogant gid Darcy because Bingley hangs around with Jane the whole time, but she doesn't think so anymore at all. So when they're alone one day, she goes, sorry for having to say it, thanks for sorting out the Lydia Wiki affair, and sorry for all the things I said back then. But it was all true. No, it wasn't. So my feelings are still the same. And my feelings are nothing like they were then. Is that a yes? Yes, I do. And everybody declare her mad. He's such an arrogant git. And her father, but you hate him. No, I don't anymore, and he never was. And of course they get married, as do Jane and Bingley. Darcy and Lizzie live at Pemberley and their friends close by. Everybody is happy. Conclusion 1. If you want to drive a man absolutely crazy for yourself, give him the cold shoulder and ruthlessly tell him the truth. Second, if you want to have a serious relationship with him, change your opinion about him now and then. Third, look at each other. Look hard. Listen to each other. That's a good start. And this, dear congregation, was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Vielen Dank.